Quiet, numbskull. I'm broadcasting.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim the Teach, and over there is A.J. Hayes, the commentator of Common Sense. And we are coming to you live tonight. We are doing a live show of the Cycle of Mayhem. A.J. Hayes, did you have anything you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody to season 2, and what a better way to start off our second season of Cycle of Mayhem. Man, time really flew by. There was a lot of things going on, and these episodes just kind of rolled their way through. And what a way to start it off tonight. We're going to touch on our post-election assessment, and basically titled as we put it out there, Americans Spoke Against Woke, or did they? And we will touch into that. But before we get into that, Jim, I think we got some special occasions we need to bring up tonight, if you would.
Yes, today, of course, is the anniversary of the United States Marine Corps. Today, back in 1775, that's 246 years ago, for those of you who struggled with math, that the Marine Corps was started and has 246 years of a great tradition of helping to defend our country, which leads us to the second major thing. We want to give a great big shout out hug to all of our veterans, because tomorrow, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of the 18th year of the 20th century, is when the first, actually it was called Armistice Day, but that's when the First World War was ended, and as a commemoration of that event, we started Armistice Day, which turned into Veterans Day, and tomorrow is the celebration of that. And it's also, I think it's, if I could just throw in there, if you talk to a lot of veterans or veterans organizations, one of the things that you hear in them touch upon is, they fought out there for us. It's our job as Americans to fight here as well for the freedoms that we hold dear. And so I think that that's a key component. Can you hear me, Jim? Oops. Are we still on? Can you hear me? I think I lost Jim. So I think he'll be back in a minute. He will, I'm sure, try to get back in. So, tonight's show is going to be digging into some of that material. I hope that to get him back in a minute, but we will be, we're still going live. And tonight's show, I just want to also point out, commemorating the veterans is a big deal. When you go out and you shake a veteran's hand tomorrow, make sure you thank them for their service. Today, we are going to be talking about what happened on November 2nd. What happened with the election? We know that we have. Just give me 1 second. I want to get him in here. See if I can get him. There he is. He came back.
Shut us down. We were trying to.
Yes, the Chinese. It was the Chinese.
They're planning something. Either that or that's that rocket we're getting ready to launch off. I think it's almost launch time down there to the Space Center.
So we lost you there for a moment, Jim. I was just trying to carry it not too well, not with your expertise as the commentator of Common Sense. So if you can dig in, take it from the top, if you will, about about what happened during that election.
Yeah, I will. I just want to touch on, I know this question comes up a lot. Between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. It often gets confused.
Right.
And what is an appropriate thing to say to veterans? And full disclosure, I'm not a veteran. However, I have a huge cycle of friends that are veterans. Some are still with us and some unfortunately are not. So we want to thank them for their service on Veterans Day, for all those who served. And I believe, and feel free if there's any veteran viewers on there, which we know there's a lot of you, to correct me if I'm not clearing this up for those who wonder about this. Memorial Day is unfortunate in celebration or lack thereof memorial for those who have sacrificed all to protect this country. Right. So you see a vet tomorrow, really should be a 365-day a year thing. I know I do that. I learn more about history when I see a veteran walking with their hat on and thank them for their service, and then ask a few questions where they serve, and they're always happy to engage. So thank you to our veterans, and happy birthday to United States Marine Corps. Now to the nuts and bolts of the show. Again, America spoke against woke, or did they? And I think I would say, Jim, the big elections to zero in on that kind of took the main stage on news, fake news, and all the outlets, with a different spin on it depending where you were watching, but was the governor's race in Virginia and the governor's race in New Jersey. Right. And it's interesting because it seems, digging into that, kind of following along, is one governor candidate kind of took a direct line and took a stance on the issues. And, for one, there will be no CRT. We're not doing this. We're going to do that. And that's the bottom line. And we're going to get action. And I'm the guy you want if you want action. Right. And he picked a phenomenal lieutenant governor, to run with him. Mm-hmm. And it made a real good team. And I think there's a lot of things that they're going to do great in the future. And then we zero in on Jersey, where, look, Murphy's Murphy. But Chitterelli, it seemed like he was trying to do like a lot of conservative candidates did, where I call it the tightrope, trying to walk along the tightrope, hold the conservative issues, be the voice of what people want. But I think he was putting one toe in the water. Maybe you can kind of elaborate on that.
Because you got to remember the electorate of New Jersey. And New Jersey, the belief is because 34% or 36% of the electorate is unaffiliated. They haven't picked a party. 40% of the electorate is Democrat, and about 24% of it is Republican. So he's not he when you say he's trying to walk that line, that's because the belief system is that this is a center left state, like a place where you would go and try to not hit the issues too hard, where you're not going to go out there and talk about life. This is the belief system. You're not going to go out there and talk about the major big button issues. Call them what they are. They're button issues, correct? Like life and Second Amendment and even CRT. This is the third rail issues. You don't talk about them, but what you do is you push your agenda, but you also push your background, push who you are, and you make yourself the candidate that is the alternative. And I will say that Jack did a better job than a handful of the previous candidates who have run, and tried to balance that tightrope. And as far as I know, he hasn't conceded yet either. They're still counting votes, and they should count all the votes. They should make sure that everything's counted and cleared up. We don't want to have any mistakes. And this is how we try to build trust in our election system, is by making sure that everyone's happy with it, or as many people that can be happy with it are happy with it. So the basics of it is New Jersey's a different egg than Virginia, and that's why Jack didn't come out necessarily against CRT. I don't agree with that point of view, by the way, but that's, I think you should come out as who you are as a candidate. And I will say, on the flip side of that, Murphy was very cagey about not talking about many issues either. And you can see this in his debates. And I actually did a special on it with his last debate, where he avoided answering questions. He avoided being specific. And that's where the two differences of the candidates. Jack was specific on certain issues. Like he said, I'm not going to blame Murphy for everything. And I'm not going to blame Murphy when it comes to whatever problems I face on my first day in office. Whereas Murphy was running around blaming Trump and blaming Christie and blaming everybody except for himself for the issues he was dealing with. So there's definitely differences in them. Murphy didn't talk about how much the cost was of electricity was going to go up with his new energy green plan. How much it was going to cost to invest in it, to build it and to make it. How much it was going to cost, like the taxpayer. How much it was going to cost to rate users. There's a study that they shouldn't have done. They should have done, but they didn't. And Murphy was just shooting from the hip on that. And I will say that one place that Jack did come out strong on is when we have the people who are selling houses, whether they should be armed. Jack, it was a little bit of a back and forth on the Second Amendment there, and Jack said, "Well, I know a lot of female, house sellers who walk around and would really like to be armed so they can feel safe." But Murphy didn't seem to care. But that's pretty much the breakdown from New Jersey. We'll see how it turns out. It's going to be a difficult road. But then again, it's interesting to note that Sweeney lost too, which is a big, big issue. Senate President of the New Jersey Legislature, Steve Sweeney, lost his bid for re-election. And I have to say, it is a district that voted for Trump, but has been historically his district. He's won it with over 55% in each time that he's won since 2011, and his opponents have not gotten over 45%. So I mean, I think I call this the miracle election for Murphy. He did what no other sitting governor has been able to do. He broke the mold on this one, and it broke the trend. So it was a miracle election. He had votes up on every single county except for the two that Sweeney are in, and the two that he didn't need.
Interesting, because you the way you described it is in the debates and stuff, he was dodging everything, and I think one's common sense would tell a voter that when you see that, well, let's go back to something we talk about on here all the time, and we use it a lot, and nobody's really disputed us on that, is the two things that Republicans and Democrats can agree upon is they don't like politicians. They really don't when push comes to shove, and they like the idea of term limits, and maybe some of these, like that senator who got smoked, maybe having term limits actually goes to their advantage instead of getting humiliated. Take your 8 years, be able to hoist your trophy and go on. And, I doubt if they'll ever get a real job, but they'll go lobby for some pharmaceutical company or some kind of cable company or whatever's going to screw the guy at the little guys. But, that being said, it's almost like you look at it, and I know I've been looking at this for the past couple of weeks for the show. Who prevailed in this? Did the Republicans actually, was it as big as it could be perceived? Or based on the circumstances, was Murphy's race, should he have gotten his ass kicked, basically, considering the fallout from the Biden-Harris failures, that just have become toxic between, look, we are starting to, well, we're not starting to, we are in a three-party state now. We have Republicans, Democrats, and leftists. And we've been talking about that on the show for the entire time. And I'm all about moving forward in season 2 of really classifying those 3 separate categories. Because like you said, mathematically in Jersey, 33% independent. I think you said it was 24% Republican, and then the rest were Democrat. Well, somewhere along the line, something had to shift around for, that's a pretty big gap, wouldn't you say, between Republican registration and Democrats. So are they the Democrats? I mean, another way to look at this, and we've been hammering this pretty good, is, the Democrat Party was the fortunate party to have radical left Marxists and whatever other titles they have hijack their party, which makes up, we always said, without any $1 million analytical data, right around 15 to 20% influence on what the party does, even though they only make up 15 to 20% of the party. That said, if you look at some of the recent polls that came out, that amongst Democrats, there's a 20% approval right in that area, give or take, for the guy who sleeps in the White House. Right. Gee, I wonder who that could be. That's perhaps that third party now. And if you saw 4 or 5, I mean, we've done it a lot on the show, folks, and we welcome you to go back and watch some of the archives, is this divide that you saw starting to happen, where the center-left Democrats, who were patriotic people and don't like to pay $5 for a gallon of gas and, feel the same way as most other patriotic Americans. It's that common ground, center-middle, just left, just right group of people that are looking at this going, what the hell's going on? And I think it's going to be interesting in the future to see. Yeah. Was this I guess the question is, was this the first step for them to start trying to take their party back? And the only way to do that is vote for someone who's conservative? I don't know, Jim. What do you think?
AJ, I gotta say, I think I'm gonna harken back to history because that's my area, history. 1976. I'm gonna put you back in the frame of 1976. Ronald Reagan. Bell bottoms. Yeah. Ronald Reagan is contesting Gerald Ford for the Republican nomination, and the two are locked in the ballot contest at the convention, and they've been going at it for months now. And at the finally, if we know, of course, historically we know Ford won that against Reagan, and at the very end, or just before Ford did his speech, he says, I want to invite Governor Reagan down here to speak to the crowd. Governor Reagan comes down. He's then the governor, obviously. And he comes down, and he stands in front, and he starts speaking to the crowd. And one of the lines that he said, and I wasn't old enough to be there. I listened to this recently. One of the best lines he says is, there's something for us as Republicans that for us, in essence, what he says, we're taking a stand on stuff, but there are Democrats out there. I think I lost AJ again. There are Democrats out there who need us to, and are looking for something to grab onto. And if you think about what that means, that's exactly the message that you're talking about. That when you have people who are looking for a cause to stand behind, they're looking for this idea that we as Republicans can offer something to the other party, because they're looking for something. There, AJ's back.
Yeah.
So that's right. I was just telling about the speech where Reagan said that Republicans are should be reaching over to the Democrats, because the Democrats are as frustrated as we are, and the things I'm hearing you say are very similar to what Reagan was trying to tell the Republicans at that convention. Just as a funny side note, I don't know if I told you this before, but that's one of the, according to the story I read, one of the Ford guys in the Texas delegation looked over at one of the Reagan guys and said, "We just nominated the wrong guy."
Yeah.
Meaning they should have nominated Reagan instead of Ford, because he just spoke so eloquently, but he nailed it perfectly. We have the message, and our message will ring true with the Democrats, who are looking for somebody to lead them. They're looking for somebody to lead them out of the mess of their party. And you know as well as I do, Reagan was a Reagan Democrat. He's a Democrat, and he switched parties because the party left him. That's who we're looking for. When you say we're reaching out across, We're looking for those Reagans out there who are fed up with their party, and they don't want to take it anymore. They're fed up with the $4 gallons of gas, or the elitists who are spending $80 on a piece of steak, or some ridiculous things like that. They know that we're fed up with it. The ordinary, they're insulated. What do they call them? Remember, we call them the insulated class because they're so wealthy. They don't need to worry about the price of stuff. You and I, we worry about the way we feed our kids, right?
They'll always have just a giant conduit of cash just rolling in at all times, and that's why we talked about in the past when these elected officials, on a $200,000 a year salary, some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less. You look into them, and 4 years later, they're multimillionaires. It's just not mathematically possible, especially based on the lifestyle. So, I mean, that's
AJ, you heard the phrase that people that we all put our pants on the same way. Bad news for you. I got bad news for you. We don't. Those insulated class, they get somebody to help them put their pants on. In the morning tomorrow, when you put your pants on, just remember you're doing it by yourself. Those insulated class, those ones who don't care about the price of gas, they got somebody there holding the pants for them so they can step into them. They don't get dressed the same way we do, folks. They never will. They never have, and they don't give a damn about us. That's the bottom line.
One thing to be proud of, though, you step into your Fruit of the Looms. The person in charge is stepping into Depends. Just prior to having his oatmeal.
Oh, my God. I don't believe I just set you. I didn't even mean to set you up with that, but that was perfect.
It actually carried weight for a long time. Like, who cares what your title is? A woman is a woman and a man is a man. And frankly, a lot of people who, might not have the monetary cushion that some of these people have, I'd rather get up and put on my own Fruit of the Looms in the morning than have someone put a diaper on me.
Yeah, there you go.
What do we got, Connor? We are fed up, but we still have no choice but to pay, and it truly is difficult to try and live and take care of yourself and your family. Absolutely, which, Connor, that goes back to episodes in season 1 where we encourage people to get involved in some way. Look, it's tough sometimes. You might be working 2 or 3 jobs. Let's just touch on this for a minute. There was a time in this country where the husband went out and he worked, and the wife stayed home and took care of the kids and got them to school. And then economic times started to get a little rough. So the husband, and there was cases where there was women in the household. And I don't say that because of any woke movement or pronoun or anything. I don't give 2 shits about that, to be honest with you. But I'm just laying out a timeline here that, the man took on a second job to make the ends meet. And then a woman subsequently, the woman in the household took on a second job. So you have the man working a full-time job, a part-time job, and then the woman takes on a part-time job. And now there's a lot of situations where they're both working full-time jobs and part-time jobs. And then there's others where there's so many help wanted signs that aren't doing anything. But, it's absolutely right. It's take this stack of pennies and put it over here for the rent, and this stack of pennies and put it over here for food, and clothes for the kids and fuel to get back and forth to work. It is a mess. But one of the things that I think we could see out of this, and we're going to get into that in a second. I actually have that outline, is moving forward. What is the way to go? But for any person in any neighborhood, try to get involved, because a lot of times, and depending where you live, there's a lot of predominantly Democrats that, especially with this mail-in ballot process, that have taken over the polls, where we know 85% of Republicans vote, but they're the police to your vote, to ID you and stuff like that. And the reason that happens a lot of times is Republicans and conservatives aren't willing to volunteer. There's some that volunteer for 30, 40 years. And then COVID came around. These older folks that have did it for years and they look forward to it, no longer do it. So we need people to, whether you're Republican or Democrat, is try and get balance at the polls. Balance where these ballots in Guam are being counted. So there's eyes on the prize. I know just recently, in fact, it was today, the head of the Republican Party, the GOP, what was some of the things that went on in Virginia that we didn't know or didn't hear behind the scenes? And I'll get to your comment in a second, Connor, that we didn't hear. And one of the things was that Virginia was flooded with approximately 500 GOP attorneys. And they took watchers from all over the country to come in there to be eyes on those ballots when they were opening. I don't know the feasibility when you have multi-state elections that are important to be able to have 500 lawyers, but think about what it shouldn't have to be done. It should be done fair, and there is some proposals out there on what to do. But Connor, work to die. That's all we designed to do. Can't enjoy weekends with your family because you have the penny pinch. Absolutely, Connor. But you know what? You have something going on there that a lot of these elite class people don't have. And first, just recognizing the issue, and then do your best to compensate for if you don't have the financial resource to do it for the time being, and show your kids a good time. Do those, some of them things, maybe introduce them to some of the stuff that we, did when we were kids. I mean, it looks like from your picture, we're a hell of a lot older than you. But in the meantime, try to do something like that. But in a lot of these elections, in Virginia, for one, when a governor turns around and tells a parent, and we're going to just get right into that you have no say over what your kid learns in school or have no input, and I might be paraphrasing him slightly, you got to be out of your mind, because that's the worst button you can push with any American, and for that matter, any human being in the world. You start messing around with their kids. And Jim and I had talked the other night behind the scenes off camera about if these magical mail-in ballots would have came in Virginia that were questionable and tipped the scales. We'll just say that, Jim, I don't think that would have ended in a very pretty situation down there. Because you just, kids are off limits, and they incorporated kids into their campaign in a sense that you're telling parents they have no say over your third grader learning about perversion, and like I said before, things that a bunch of drunk guys sitting at the bar wouldn't even talk about. So that I think definitely was a trigger that, oh hell no. And in order to win mathematically down there, they needed those neutral Democrats. So what are the strategies moving forward for the Republicans, Democrats, and don't forget the third line now, the third party, the liberals? Ours, I would say, if you don't mind, Jim, I'll get into this for a second.
Go for it.
And it's interesting because we talked about this a lot, and now you're really seeing it on front page, is Republicans need to shake that. Trump was able to brand people, Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and he had nicknames for everybody, and it'll be on their tombstones, in their final days. There's names stuck that he gave them. But one thing that Hillary was able to do is brand, conservatives, and she had some help, that they're racist, bigoted, dirty, trailer park, whatever the words were. And they need to get that out of the way. And they need to go in and really make an aggressive move to extend the olive branch to the black and brown community. And frankly, for that matter, not just black and brown, but those people who live in the community of all color and races that are in the underprivileged communities. Because this is the opportunity, another election cycle, especially in Jersey, Camden, and some of those other cities, where this guy's been governor for how long? Mm-hmm. He comes floating around, wants your vote. You see him every 4 years, or however his operatives down there, telling you, don't vote for this person. They're racist, or they're bigots, or whatever their title is of the day. But vote for our guy. And now another 4 years is going to go by, and there's still going to be carnage in your streets. There's still going to be poverty. You're still going to be bottom of the list. Nobody pays attention. And as we say, that is the cycle of mayhem. That's why this show is named what it's the title of the show, Cycle of Mayhem, and it's in plain sight. Right. So the Republicans have an opportunity now to really go in there and I believe President Trump had said that along his campaign trail, the original one, and he didn't, I can't speak for him, but I don't think he meant sarcasm, but he was just cutting right to the chase. What do you have to lose? What have these people ever done for you other than want your vote, and then they disappear? So I think the strategy moving forward for Republicans is they have to continue. They have made great strides. My understanding is it was 17%, I believe, or 11 or 17% Hispanic voted in Virginia conservative, which was a high number. We saw that number in Miami. And the interesting thing is sometimes people of color, they realize, and they actually did do their homework, or their common sense kicked in and said, you know what? What have these leftists done for us? Nothing. They've done nothing for us. They're not doing anything. Or when it's election time, they'll throw a couple bucks around to put, like we said before, blind blood with bucks, and then they disappear, and they're ridiculed for it, and they're called the names that I'm not going to say, but they really take just a lot of pressure not to entertain being a conservative. But if you look at the people who are leading the charge to belittle these people of color in the cities, and frankly anywhere, they're living like kings. These people, it's a small niche group that people of color that have clinged to this elite insulated class of leftists who, we said before, probably never had anyone of color or anyone of a lower income, or probably even blue collar, eat off a fork in their house. So
I think there's also another aspect to this, AJ. Like if you look at these communities you're mentioning, the Latino, the Black communities, if you look at these communities, there's a growing greater connection between conservative values that we hold and the values that the far left, which is dominating the Democratic Party, holds. Their anti-God approach is one of the things that makes them dangerous to those communities, because these are many of these communities are very church based.
Absolutely.
They're very much based on their faith. Now, faith comes in many different flavors, and having said that, these I think that one of the big motivators of these communities to switch, like you described, to wanting to come over. I mean, we are a better fit for them than any Democrat Party would be. The Democratic Party is not in it for the people; it's in it for the Democrat leadership. And I don't mean the blue collar worker who's been voting union for decades. I'm not talking about that guy or gal. I'm talking about the AOCs. I'm talking about the Chuck Schumers. I'm talking about the Joe Bidens. I'm talking about the Barack Obamas. I'm talking about the people at the top who really don't care about your vote and are just manipulating you to get your vote. Whereas you and I and those who are sitting on our side are looking to preserve American values, are looking to, and by American values, I'm talking about equality. I'm talking about, following the words of people like Martin Luther King Jr., talking about following the words of the great statesmen that we've had in our country, like Ronald Reagan, who believed that you as an American are something precious to America, and that we shouldn't put foreign people who sneak into our country above you. These messages that from these communities are that put faith in God and country before other countries, and the Democrats aren't doing that.
And it's interesting you brought up faith, because with all the carnage that goes on in these areas and the bloodshed that still continues, even with these news media outlets, especially the months leading up to election, trying not their best not to put these stories on for people to see, the people live there, they're seeing it for their own eyes. And, the only thing a lot of them do when they see these massacres that are happening every night, sometimes 2, 3, 4 a day, and, they lean to faith and they come together and they worship because it's one of the only things that gives them some type of solace. And I don't think they realized that the leftists are really pushing religion out the door, because is it just their sick ideology, or is it because they know religion can really bring that inner power out of somebody to say, hey, I want to go out there and make a difference? But one of the things that they, if you're in that situation, you need to take a look around. Who is the person knocking at your door? Who's the person in the $1,000 suit that pops into your neighborhood every 4 years, or is driving the fancy car, through your neighborhood every 4 years, preaching this stuff to you? And I don't mean as in faith. I'm talking about as in political bullshit that, don't vote for the Republic. They're terrible for you. They're living a pretty good lifestyle, and they're a tentacle of the next tier up of black and brown who've been embraced solely for the convenience of the leftists to go out there and be their conduit of propaganda to lead you to believe. So when we're, before we get into what the Democrat Party needs to do, finishing up what the Conservative Party needs to do is get in there and break those barriers. There should be billboards everywhere, because part of the second thing conservatives need to figure out is how are they going to get their fair shake on the news? And the answer is they're not. No time soon. And I would think you need to put all your eggs in a basket. I think there should be a national just blitz everywhere, every outlet, whether it's social media, TV, traditional TV, and start blasting those commercials and go right to the point and ask people, what have these people done for you, and expose it for what it is, and put those anywhere you possibly can. If you have to, well, you get a fine for littering, but drop leaflets if you have to, for God's sake, to get the message out, to at least get people to start realizing, there's a second side of this, and then they can make their own decision. We always encourage people on here to make their own decision. And, so that's what, a recap on what conservatives need to do is definitely be more proactive in these communities where, again, it's not even just communities of color. It's communities where there's also people of all races down there that just can't seem to get a leg up. And some of them are very happy where they live, but they just can't make the ends meet because they've been forgotten. And they've been forgotten for a long, long time. And that's not American. We're, whether there's merit to this $450,000 to pay illegals or not, or whatever this mayhem is going on at the border, yes, you're absolutely right. Those folks are getting more attention and more red carpet treatment than people that were born here, raised here, or migrated here and have spent thousands of dollars to get legal citizenship. Something is wrong. And hopefully these people will start to see that.
Connor's got something to say, but I just want to throw that out there. I don't see any parents, and I know that there have been parents who've been separated from their kids because of legal issues, because of they've been put in jail, or because the kids have been taken away and been put into a shelter. I've seen these kids. I've worked with these kids in my previous job.
Yeah.
And I don't see anybody offering those parents the $450,000 for the separation with their kid. This was months court ordered, separated. This was actually the government's doing, not somebody sneaking across the border and getting caught. You know what I mean? Like the parents brought this separation onto the kids. What I'm talking about is the government actually got people in front of a judge and said, take that child and put that child in a shelter. They can't be with their parent.
Yeah,
no one's paying that family.
No. And as Connor asked, I wonder what I could do as a human being to help educate my generation, because half of them have no clue on what the hell is going on in the world and just vote, and never read between the facts. And he's absolutely right, Connor. I don't know if you've been watching the show or season one, but that's almost word for word what it's really one of the reasons we do the show is to tell folks, on what they could do. So the answer would be, and we always say at the end of the show to everyone, as frustrated as you get, don't argue with anybody. It gets frustrating, but don't argue, because sometimes, you're probably going to start to see more people that want to hear. And if you can guide them to just at least entertain a different point of view, you could start to win things over. But you're going to have those still that want to shout you down, and they're going to look you right in the face and shout you down with nothing but lies and propaganda. You have to walk away from that person because they're still drinking the Kool-Aid. But as this continues to hit people in their pockets, remember, when you go to the pump or you go to get a hamburger or, necessities for your home, the bare necessities, it doesn't say, at least yet, this price, it's not a red and a blue sticker with the price on it. The price is for everybody. It's not a different price for Republicans and a different price for Democrats. So we always believe, and it's a known fact, you start hitting people in the pockets, political allegiance gets thrown out the window. Now, that could be part of the movement, too, on why they're trying to sneak these bills through, where they want to just keep pumping cash into people's pockets. And we said that, and we called that on this show early on. Yeah, you got your $1,500, and, people with a little common sense, their eyebrow went up going, what's the catch? And then others actually believed that it was going to be something. Well, I think you're well past the $1,600 now, just in essentials. You're probably about $3,000 more than what you spent last year. So I think part of that, their operation is to, basically bottle feed people and hand feed them, and they control it. I believe the word of that is socialism. And, give them the illusion that there's no problem, but we all know that's not sustainable and cannot continue on and on and on. So again, kind of to recap something for your question, is there is people that will listen, and sometimes it's not about being real pushy. People are a little apprehensive, but I think the doors are opening more and more based on the election results of Virginia and then, predominantly blue Jersey, where there is people, and, Connor, keep in mind, there's a lot of people sitting in their homes right now, especially Democrats, that are looking like, where do I go? That was going on with Republicans 2 years ago. People wanted to get involved, and they're emailing and they're reaching out. And nobody's calling them back, And since then, they've kind of got the cylinders firing in a lot of areas. Still needs work. Well, the same thing's happening now with Democrats, where, well, wait a minute, I'm a Democrat. My whole family's been a Democrat, but we're not that kind of Democrat. That's why we say now there's three different parties: Republican, Democrat, liberals, or leftists. And, so there are going to be people out there that you might bump into at a coffee shop or something that you can have a, conversation. I always say this. My neighbor is a Democrat, and he, 2 years ago, was kind of leaning more towards a leftist. And it was just a few months ago that he it was a simple, normal hello. We have great conversation all the time, do everything for each other. And he said, one thing, let me get it clear. He said, I'm a Democrat. I'm not a liberal. And it was eye-opening. I don't think his wife's quite there yet, but he has come to, see what was going on. And we do have never heated debate, ultimate respect for each other. So it is there. And if you could get it passed on to one, and then that person might have 4 or 5 people in their circle, and then they start getting word of mouth. And what you need to do is to have people start digging. And it is tough because of the biased news and the censorship on social media. But you can't. If the people in Virginia rolled over and said, this is not winnable, it's not doable, they'd have a loony left in there running it, and they don't now. And I believe they won the governor, lieutenant governor, and a couple other seats. I think the AG of this state. Yeah, so I mean that one swoop there, they could start getting a lot of things under control. And I think in the upcoming months and year, Virginia's really going to be under the microscope. And if you're a Republican, now's the time to show before and after. And we talked about running these commercials. This should be a national campaign if you're a conservative, running these commercials and literally put side by side on the screen the leftist ideas and the conservative ideas. Leave it up for 15 seconds and end it at the bottom like Dan Crenshaw put in some of his Twitter posts. Digest that for a minute and just leave it there. No words need to be spoken. And I think it could take off. Now the question is, Jim, what do the Democrats have to do with this poison ivy that's all over them? And they're itching between the toes, behind the ears. They got it all over the place.
I recommend that every Democrat stay home from this point forward and never, ever vote again. That's my recommendation, AJ.
Interesting. I mean, look, maybe that's the way they're going. Or
they
that
could be so upset with their party that they should never vote again.
That was always the question was, will they just not vote for anybody because they're so frustrated? Yeah. And we saw some have come over and said, no, I want to vote for this, and change conservative. They did just run the numbers in a couple of the states where you're talking 500,000. Let me rephrase that. But basically, in a lot of states where the Democrat voter registration, let's say, was 500,000 to 400,000, it's now 600,000 Republican compared to 500,000 Democrat. And there's a strong push to continue to get people to change over. And the reason being is until they can get a hold of these mail-in ballots. So they can have all the mail-in ballots in the world, but if they come up with 700,000 mail-in ballots, there's only 500,000 registration. I don't think you need 500 lawyers to prove that case. But then again, it depends who the judge is. But but
the Kyle Rittenhouse for self-defense. So
being fair like we do, and I always try to give both sides their time here. Is the answer for the Democrat. They got to squash the squad and detach from the leftists. It looks like they're actively trying to do it. I think CNN has actually run out of bullshit to spew. I really seen them getting tongue-tied.
They just got a new bag, man. They just got a new bag. That's all.
What's that?
They just reloaded their bag of BS.
Yeah, I think they're getting a little scary, though, on who they're bringing on because the senator of Florida, I don't remember word for word what had happened, but it was like, we got him in our house now. And when she tried to shut him up, he kept talking, and he just basically schooled her. And you could see the expression on her face. She didn't know what to think. She was like hitting a commercial button or whatever it was, because he took that opportunity knowing the viewer base. CNN is default channel in airports and everywhere else, that he had that stage and he used it. So, it's going to be interesting to see what lies ahead. But there needs to be some change. There really does. And, not to get off topic, but it was interesting because a lot of Democrat associates that I have, I can't say that I have too many leftist associates. And the reason I say that is because, I'm a friendly guy, and we could agree to disagree, but in the end, I'll buy you coffee. You can't talk to most of these people. They want to shout you down. They give you the look. I mean, they're just, most of them, not all, but most of them just not happy people. Something's squirrely going on there. But, there was this, even some of a good portion of Democrat associates that I know were really getting frustrated with these masks and this whole COVID thing that's going on and realizing, wait a minute, because, as time ticks on, the common sense tends to kick in a little bit. And people have time to digest and go, wait a minute, like the old, what you talk about, Willis? And, they would say, look, these masks are getting old now. They finally have realized that a little paper 15-cent mask is not going to protect you from some biohazard disease. Right. And their shorts are getting in a bunch, that they put on by themselves. And I just spurted it out. I said, well, you watch, come November 3rd, they'll all be probably going away. And I said it with a hint of sarcasm, not knowing that it was actually brought to me by some Democrats that I started reading articles about the masks may not be as needed and the Delta variant. I still think they named it to kind of affiliate with Delta Force, something, if you have another variation of COVID, maybe you should start with Alpha. I don't know how we got to Delta, but anyway. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden now, the court just overturned a ruling in Pennsylvania that it was unconstitutional for them to mandate masks on people, and it's starting to snowball. The way I said it to them was, when it becomes not politically beneficial anymore, then you'll start seeing them, magically COVID is not what it used to be. That said, they're only going to do it if they can't politicize it or use it to their advantage. And I think when you're in the shoes of the Democrat Party right now, you need all the help you can get. So I'm going to give a prediction. Probably almost nationally, within the next 10 days, you're going to see aggressive things to remove these masks, and you're going to start to see a lot of this COVID fizzle, except for pushing these vaccines, which they probably had an ocean full of surplus and figured out, well, we can add a booster shot for, adults. And then, you know what? Yeah, we give a little bit of that to the kids. Well, we can't give that much. Again, as we always say on this show, you want a shot, you go out and get your shot. That's between you and your doctor. But man almighty, something doesn't smell right with the whole thing. But I think if they're in such code red, you're going to see a decrease with the whole COVID thing in the mask to try and simmer people down and get ready, because they're trying to push, I'm assuming, for some kind of stimulus check or something like that. What did we call them a couple of weeks ago, Jim? Propaganda bombs? Diversion bombs, and all start coming out. So, folks, Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight gives you something to look for. Watch for it, because it's probably coming. Look for what the diversions are going to be, as they try to get their party intact, to separate from the squad and the hard leftists that are bringing their party down. If they pull this vaccination mandate for young children, we are going to have a problem, as many parents refuse to be a child vaccinated. They better lock me up. Connor, keep your cool, man, because that's kind of the consensus with everybody. And look at what happened in Virginia. We talked on that earlier in the show, where that was a game changer when politicians start talking about what they're going to do to people's kids and telling parents they don't have a say. So we don't have a crystal ball here, and we always try and give facts, or at least in the right direction. So I don't think anybody could say it would never happen, but I think there's a lot of people, an awful lot of people, that are right there with you. Like, look, I got the shot. Make them happy so I can get on a plane. I don't have to deal with people at work, whatever. Some people it grew on them a little bit. But I think when you're talking about putting that stuff into a kid, I think you're going to open up Pandora's box, and it's not going to be good. So just for the record, Connor, I've had about 8 or 9 text messages in 2 days from different people regarding it. And a lot of them were moms that were really, really, really emotional about that, because I'll tell one quick story that, Jim, I mean, you're a teacher, man, and this to me just doesn't seem not even remotely normal. Kindergarten kids, not middle school, not 5th, 4th grade, kindergarten, coming in and saying to other kindergarten kids, guess what? I'm getting my shot tomorrow. Now, I don't know about you, but there is one thing I remember when I was that little. To recognize that hallway when I was drugged down to the doctor. And as soon as I recognized that red firelight on the wall and knew where I was, man, I was putting the brakes on, because I knew they were going to drop my drawers, pull a cheek out, and jab me in the lower end with a needle. It just doesn't even seem right that little kids would be so anxious about getting stuck in the arm. Kindergarten, Jim. Something that's just, to me, was like, they should be talking about Little League and Pokemon and kid things.
If you're a good little boy, they'll give you a lollipop too.
I don't know, and I don't think anybody can convince, I don't think anybody can convince the masses that overnight you just turned around and that thing is good. Again, that's between the parent, the pediatrician, and their kid. But I think common sense has to prevail on that one. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I got my injections because of my medical conditions and my age. It just it fit for me, and that's why I did it. But
well,
I
I don't
talked to
lie
my
about it. I
doctor about
wasn't
it.
afraid of it. I didn't have a conspiracy theory about it. But when they started fussing around with you can't get on a plane, I said, "Oh no, no, that's not going to happen. When it's time to get to the beach, man, it's time to get to the beach." So I took the path of least resistance to give it that shot, and you know, I got the Johnson and Johnson, and I was lucky there was no one there, and it was faster than getting a hamburger to drive through, and that's why I did it. Uh, love hearing you guys. Please make sure I'm tagged. Jim, can you handle that for Connor?
Sure
Connor,
thing.
yeah, every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Sometimes we run a little bit behind because we try to just recap the current events. We do like to do the live shows and have people interaction. We asked you, Connor, to share, Ballistic Patriot, not only the Cycle of Mayhem, but another great show on Sunday night, the Brotherhood of Liberty. And we always say this, folks. You know, we're blue collar people. We're hardworking folks. There's people out there, that are a lot worse off than us, and some people are a lot better off than us. But it's all about a common ground, is given a platform and a voice, and that's why the show is called The Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. If we could do our part to tell people, look, you don't have to believe a Republican or a Democrat, but hey, this happened, here it is, and maybe look at it through a different perspective as to why it happened, then your eyebrow go up. And the more you do it, the more naturally you'll see stuff, and you'll be able to pick out the nonsense and the bullshit real quick. And then it's a matter of, it's like a detective show, then trying to figure out what the motive is in the political play. So, Jim, that's all I have. Anything you have that you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we keep track of the day 88 of the Afghan hostage crisis that is still going on because of Sleepy Joe's inability to govern and his self-interest in looking to have the troops out by the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and him not caring about the lives that were sacrificed, the blood and treasure that was left there. And, that's pretty much it for me. And it reflects his doddering old ridiculousness is reflected in his poll numbers of being in the 30s, and Kamala's, or however she's saying her name today, is in the
Parlez-vous
20s.
français?
Yeah, she's in the 20s. So,
Look, we can't miss, we got to add this before we close. There is one real happy American right now.
Yeah.
One real happy American. The Peanut Man, Jimmy Carter, is the happiest guy on the planet because there was a dummy bigger than him.
Yeah.
And you know what, folks, whether we have a Republican or a Democrat president, up there in charge, if you're a Dunsky and a dope, we're going to call you out on it. Yeah. And that's what needs to be done. And
expect Biden to be wearing a sweater next year this time, saying, "Hey, you're going to have to just dress warmer, folks. Can't afford the heat in your house. That's okay. Just put on an extra sweater."
Yeah. Put on a double diaper.
Yeah.
But folks, always remember: be kind. Try to spread the word. Share us. We're always here. Put your comments in. We'll try and answer them. And like I said, always be kind. No reason to be confrontational. That's what they want. They're looking for all the diversions they could possibly get to take their eye off the prize, which is taking America back for all the people, predominantly the working class, blue collar folks. All right. God bless. See you next week.
God bless.